Hello and welcome back everyone to the latest episode of An American in Thailand, airing every Friday. This program is broadcast to you from Ratchamakon University of Technology, Peranakan. And it will come to you in two parts. For the first part, I'll introduce a certain topic to you about being an American here living in Thailand. Could be about food, travel, culture, lifestyle, politics, anything like that. Anything we want to talk about. We'll then take a break, and in the second part of the program, we will get into more details, examples, specifics of whatever topic we're talking about. All right, let's get to the program. Welcome everyone, my name is Gary Gray and I am your host for An American in Thailand. I am American, obviously, and I am an English teacher here at Ratchamakon University of Technology, Peranakan. I've been here for about 9 years. I've finished up 9 full semesters of teaching here, but of course the 2 semesters in a year don't cover the whole year, so I haven't quite been here exactly 9 years as far as how long I've been living here. But almost. I've been here almost 9 years. So that's long enough to get a pretty good feel for some of the differences between America and Thailand. And by the way, when I say America, I mean the United States. Some people get upset when people from the U.S. say they're from America, because, of course, you have North, you have South America. All of the countries there are technically America. But we have no other term for people from the United States other than Americans, because the United States of America, so we call ourselves Americans. We have no other term for it. So if we are Americans, we naturally say we're from America. We're not trying to offend anyone. Sometimes people from some of those other countries do get bothered by that. I see that especially from Canadians. We're Americans too. They are. In fairness, they are. So are Mexicans. So are people from Cuba. So are people from South America. Brazilians are Americans. But yes, people from the U.S. often call themselves Americans. So when I say an American in Thailand, I mean from the U.S. All right, so for this episode, we're going to talk about some cultural differences between the U.S. and Thailand. We've already discussed a lot of these topics, but I want to kind of go through these several different points. And then in the second part of the program, we'll talk about which one's better. A lot of times I will end up saying that neither is better. We actually did have one topic last week, a couple weeks ago, sometime in April of 2026. We're recording this late April 2026, sometime earlier this month. We did actually have one topic where I actually did say that one country was actually better on something. And it was Thailand was better. You're going to see that this is going to be a typical one where I say that neither one's actually better. It depends on your preference. Now, I will tell you that I do have a preference, but it depends on your preference. Okay, so let's go through some of the different cultural differences. Some of these are maybe more lifestyle differences, although it could be related to culture. Like the very first item on my list, work schedules. So work schedules in Thailand tend to be a little less difficult than work schedules in America. Now, let me be clear, that's not entirely true. There's more sort of blue collar, that's like labor-intensive work here in Thailand. So that's actually harder work than like what I do as a teacher. So I'm certainly not saying that people don't work hard in Thailand. But in America, pretty much because of the way the economic system is set up, which really favors wealthy people, I think it does that even here in Thailand. I think pretty much every country does that. But I think it's really like that in America. Because of that, people have to work harder. So a lot of times people will have 2 jobs, or they'll work long hours on their one job that they have. Most families, if they have a full family, like kids and two parents, usually both parents are working. Not always. We certainly have quite a few stay-at-home moms, even some stay-at-home dads. But usually both parents have to work. So the work schedules in America are much, I don't want to say harder, because again, there's more blue-collar work here in Thailand. Plenty of people work really hard here. There's a lot more kind of mom and pop, little small restaurants here in Thailand. That's a lot of hard work, working over the fire and the heat here in Thailand. So again, I'm certainly not saying that people in Thailand don't work hard. But generally speaking, just kind of the number of hours per week that someone might work, the average is higher in the United States. Okay, my second item, school focus on social activities. There's a lot more of that here in Thailand. Is that good? Is that bad? We're going to kind of talk about that in the second half. I can see a good side to it and a bad side to it, but again, we're going to talk about which one's better in the second part of the program. Right now, we're just focusing on what the differences are. So, again, here in Thailand, there's a lot more kind of social events, programs, cultural things that we do in our schools here in Thailand as compared to America. It's not to say they don't do any of that in America. I can remember when I was in school in America, we had certain events we do, fun things we do, activities, but it's much less in America. It's more about going to class, studying, that sort of thing. Politeness versus considerate. Here's an interesting thing, because Thailand is known for its politeness. However, one of the few bad things, I will actually say something bad about Thailand, I will be honest. One of the few bad things I've found about Thailand is that there's a difference between being polite and being considerate. Being considerate means, being willing to help people out, do stuff for someone. Certainly there are plenty of people that are considerate here in Thailand, but it's usually people are considerate with their friends. They're not going to be considerate very often with someone they don't know. I find Americans to be more considerate, but less polite. I'll give you an example. When you're in line, for example, at 7-Eleven. This happened to me just yesterday. In line at 7-Eleven. A new cashier opens up her counter because there's a line forming. Person in the back of the line might rush up to the front of that counter. That is inconsiderate. That's rude. The next person in line should step over to be the first person served in that counter. And I see that all the time. It happens a lot with lines. Like if you're in a line waiting to get on the MRT or BTS, someone will just cut right in front of you. Rude, inconsiderate. But if it's of no inconvenience to someone, because see, they're trying to convenience themselves, they're trying to get through it faster, cut in front of the line. But if it's of no inconvenience to them, a Thai person will be very polite about something. Thai people are very polite, not always very considerate. Americans are very considerate. If you're the next person in line and a new cash register opens up, you would go there. And everyone would know that you should go there because you're the next one in line. Of course you go there. Polite? Not always. Depends where you're from. Where I'm from in America? Nah. We're not very polite. But we're considerate. Part of it gets back to the first point I made about our work schedules. We work a lot. We're tired. We're grumpy. We don't want to be at the store or if we're not working, we want to be home resting. Or at least out with friends, at least something like that. I mean, we don't want to. So, we don't want to be bothered. We're not very polite. Considerate, yes. So there's a difference there. Religious influences. It's very different between the two countries. Here in Thailand, there's more religious influence, but it's less invasive. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, Buddhism has much more. You see it around a lot more. You see monks on the street. We have a whole lot of temples here. In America, we don't have a national religion. But it does seem to get pushed more, like into our government. For example, the majority religion in America is Christianity, and a lot of conservative people who tend to be of the Christian faith, they love to try to push that into the government. For example, when it comes to things like rights for gay people, they use their religious beliefs to oppose that. Well, in America, that's not supposed to happen. We have something in our Constitution where religion is supposed to stay out of politics. They get involved anyway. So it's more. That's what I mean when I say it's more invasive. They try to push it on you more. So even though it's less as far as what you see in everyday life, it's pushed on you more. Traditional influences, much bigger here in Thailand. Because America is what we call a melting pot, in other words, people come from all over the world, there's not a lot of tradition there. That's not to say there's none. There's certainly some. And we like to kind of combine our traditions. In fact, the very fact that we are a melting pot is part of our tradition. Like we have a lot of kind of, like the food in America is very varied because we take all the food from all these different cultures. We don't like keep it all apart. Like, oh, well, the German people, they're going to eat their German stuff and the Mexican people are going to eat their Mexican stuff. No. Everyone eats whatever they want. So I guess that's kind of a tradition in America. But we don't really have a kind of that deep tradition. It's also not as old of a country as Thailand is. Now, Thailand as a country of Thailand, I guess, isn't all that old. But the people, the Thai people, were pretty much the same back in Sukhothai era, Ayutthaya era. I mean, those back during those times. So the culture here has been around longer. So there's more of those traditions available. So there's a lot more traditional influence culturally here in Thailand. Attitudes even towards things like sex are different, which is a little bit weird. And again, that gets back to one of the things I mentioned before with religion. I talked about this in one of our other episodes. It's really weird because infidelity, that means when you're cheating on someone, is much higher here in Thailand than it is in the U.S. Now, of course, how do you know what's happening? You have to ask people, I guess, interview them, and they have to be honest with you, and some people are going to lie. So, yeah, I'm not sure how accurate the numbers are, but based on the numbers we have, infidelity is much higher in Thailand, and yet divorce is much higher in America. You would think if you're having infidelities here in Thailand, that's going to cause divorce. But people are a lot more open about sex here in Thailand than they are in America. It's one of the reasons why people are more open towards LGBTQ people here in Thailand as well. They're fairly open. Most people are in America. But remember, I mentioned those religious influences. You have a lot of those conservative people who are not. So there's still some pushback against that in America. Okay, income versus cost. This is more of a lifestyle issue. And this is interesting because both the incomes and the prices for stuff are lower here in Thailand. Now, which one's better? That really depends on your lifestyle. Again, we're going to talk about that in the second part of the program. So I'm just going to leave that one at that because we're going on a little too long here. So we'll move on. But income and prices lower in Thailand. versus the US. Social programs. Social programs are generally, depends exactly what you're talking about, but generally social programs are a lot bigger in America. It does mean our taxes are higher because you have to pay for them somehow. And our taxes in America are way higher than they are here in Thailand. But we do get more for that. For example, Social Security. When you retire here in Thailand, the government will give you some money every month. It ain't very much. There's no way you're going to live on that. In America, well, because the costs are kind of high, it's a little hard to live on the Social Security payment you get there. But they also figure out, like, based on how long you're going to live, how much you should get paid. So if you wait a little while to retire, they'll move up the amount that they're going to pay you in Social Security. So you could possibly live on that. You could live on that money in America, which is nice because you can have like a real retirement. You can retire, stop working. Here in Thailand, you better have saved up some money or you're going to have to keep working. And we have a lower retirement age here in Thailand as well, so that makes that doubly hard. How are you going to keep working if you got a lower retirement age? So social programs, very different. And again, pluses and minuses to it. We'll get to that in the second half. But as I mentioned, our taxes are higher in America, so you keep less of your money because you're going to pay for those social programs. And the last thing is politics. Politics is very different between the two countries. It's similar in that people do get uptight about it. I've seen people, just this last election we had here in Thailand, I saw people arguing about which side's better, which side's worse. But I would say that generally speaking, politics is bigger in America. It impacts almost everything. And generally, this certainly does not apply to everyone, but generally, because it has more influence in America, Americans are more knowledgeable about politics. Like, I've had some political discussions with some people here in Thailand who I consider to be fairly intelligent, and I've heard them make some not very wise statements about politics here. And I consider the way the political system is set up as far as how they do the elections and such. Well, we've talked about this in a previous episode. There are pros and cons. I'm not going to say it's terrible. It's not a terrible system. But it's a little awkward, shall we say, the way the votes get spread out among so many different parties. You can have a party win with less than 30% of the vote. We saw that, I believe, 2 elections ago for the Prime Minister. Now, of course, you don't vote directly for the Prime Minister like we do for the President in America. So my point is the politics is very different, and I think it's bigger in America, and because it's bigger in America, I think more Americans, again, certainly not every American. Boy, there are some real not so smart people in America when it comes to politics, but which is kind of why we're in the situation we're in. What you see in the world right now. We have this oil crisis going on because of a war that America started. But generally, I would say that people in America are more knowledgeable about the politics, the candidates, the issues, generally. All right, so in the second part, we will discuss which is better between each of these factors. All right, so let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everyone. All right, so we're talking about cultural differences between Thailand and the U.S. There's a lot more than just the issues I mentioned in the first part of the program, but I did mention about 9 different things. That's a pretty good list. So we're going to discuss each one of those points here. Now, the first part of the program took a little bit longer to go through and explain all those. So we're going to try to hit each one of these very quickly. But we're going to discuss which one's better. What's better culturally? What we have here in Thailand or what they have in America. All right, so work schedules. All right, so as I mentioned, in America, the work hours are longer, generally, than they are here. People still work very hard here in Thailand. I don't want to make it sound like they don't, but work schedules are longer in America. I think this one's pretty easy. I think it's better here in Thailand. I think that's we call that in America, which they probably have a similar phrase here in Thailand. We call that work-life balance. In other words, you should have enough free time for yourself so that you can enjoy your life too. I mean, we don't live to work, right? You want to be able to enjoy yourself a little bit. So there's better work-life balance here in Thailand. Have more time for yourself. So I would say that one's better in Thailand. Okay, school focus on social activities. This one's tough. I can see both sides to this argument. It's good to make sure everyone is kind of socially integrated. It's important to work on social skills so you don't have sort of these people who are outcasts. It's good to have these social activities in school. But I can also tell you that it does interfere with the learning. We have so many of these activities here in Thailand that, as a teacher, it's sometimes frustrating. I won't find out about the activity until the last minute, and the students will come to me and say, "Oh, teacher, we have to do this today," and suddenly that class is gone. Now, what am I supposed to do? I have the whole syllabus written out. I got to come up with reschedule everything. Oy. So, there's a balance there. Hard to say which one's better. I think if I had to say which one I preferred, probably it would be American in that issue. But I could definitely see an argument favoring Thailand. Politeness versus considerate. Here I would have to say I do prefer the American side. I think being considerate is more important than being polite, because politeness can be fake. Actually, being considerate means you're thinking about someone else. You're considering that other person. And I find Americans to be more considerate and Thai people to be more polite. I think being considerate is more important. Don't get me wrong, I do like the Thai politeness. That's also good. But politeness without being considerate, that's kind of shallow, we would call that, which is not a good thing. Religious influences, here I'd have to favor Thailand. Because as I said, in America, the religious influences are more invasive. I don't think that's a good thing. I mean, I suppose if you're a conservative person and it's your religion that's getting put into the government, maybe you actually like that. But I think for most people, that's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. And I'm not saying there's no religious influence in government here either. We do have some conservatives, like some Buddhist conservatives who have some governmental influence, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen here at all, but there's less of it. It's less invasive, and I think that's a good thing. Traditional influences, I also prefer Thailand for that, just because, again, that's really just a matter of how far back your history goes. The Thai history goes back further, so there's more interesting cultural things that come out of tradition. That's not really so much a better or worse thing. I mean, it's just a matter of how long you've been around. But nonetheless, I still do prefer Thailand. Attitudes toward sex, we talked about that. And here again, I would probably prefer Thailand. Sort of. I think what appears to be pretty much an acceptance of infidelity. I'm sure not everyone accepts it, but generally speaking, I'm not so sure I like that. But I do like the better openness towards the LGBTQ community, and I do think people should be allowed to do what they want, be who they are. So, generally, I guess I would prefer the Thailand culture when it comes to that. But again, not perfectly. Income versus cost. This is totally dependent on your lifestyle. Do you have a car? America's better. Yeah. Because most things cost less here, but incomes are lower. So it pretty much balances out. But if you drive, cars here are just about as expensive as they are in America. That's kind of a big luxury item that they can't really cut the cost on too much to buy here in Thailand. In fact, sometimes it's even more expensive because it has to be imported. Usually, there are some manufacturers that have some plants here in Thailand, but not a lot. In fact, I sometimes do some work at an Isuzu plant, so they do make some cars here, but not a lot. They have to be imported. So, like if you have a car, that is outrageously expensive here relative to income. If you're living a more simple life, you eat fried rice every day. You don't have a car. It's just easier here. Just easier, less stress. So it depends on your lifestyle, the income versus cost thing. Social programs. Here I would side with the American side. While we do have to pay a lot more taxes in America, I do think some of the social benefits we get are good. The biggest one I mentioned before in the first part of the program is Social Security. That's huge. When you retire in America, you can actually retire. Maybe. Again, you don't get a lot of money. It kind of depends on where you live. When you retire, how much you've contributed, because you basically get back what you put in. So how much you've contributed into your Social Security, which is dependent on how much you've been earning, because they take out just an exact certain percentage out of your paycheck every time. So it's not always easy to live on that. But if you manage things properly, you manage your finances properly, it's possible to. You really can't do that here in Thailand. So you better be saving money. You better inherit money. You better or you better be planning on continuing to work somehow. You gotta come up with something. In America, no. Again, you do have to manage wisely. It's not easy to live on Social Security in America, and it depends on your situation. For some people, they just can't. But if you've worked your whole life, contributed to Social Security your whole life, if you manage things wisely, you should be able to retire on your Social Security. Okay, and politics, which one's better? I don't know. It's terrible in both countries. I think just because of the individual involvement and investment in politics, I'd say America is a little bit better in this regard, but all you need to do is look at what's going on right now. American politics is terrible. So I guess America's better in theory when it comes to politics, but in practice, I'm not so sure. Okay, so that's all of our 9 items. As you can see, in some ways America's better. In other ways, Thailand's better. I really think it's up to you. I think for young, ambitious people, America may offer more opportunity to get ahead in life. Like I said, if you're driving a car, because of the cost, it's really outrageously expensive here in Thailand. Go to America, you make more. The car costs the same amount of money. Like I said, most things do cost less here, so it's kind of adjusted. It kind of balances. Cars do not cost less. You go to America, you have a car, easy. Cars would be relative to how much you're earning, cheap in America. So there's more opportunity to get ahead in life in America. Plus the work hours are more, so maybe you can make more money that way as well. That's not always a good thing, as we talked about. Work-life balance, better in Thailand. But the opportunity is there. But again, it's only if you're willing to work really hard, as I just mentioned, those more hours. Now, on the other hand, for maybe some older people who are just looking to slow down, Thailand does offer a more relaxed environment. Healthcare costs are also lower here, much lower. Can still be really expensive since you're earning less. But if you have insurance, like government insurance, like I have because I work at a government university, the healthcare costs are pretty much almost zero. For medicine, I still need to pay sometimes, but close to zero. And healthcare is obviously a bigger issue for older people than younger people. Older people tend to need more healthcare. So you have lower costs that way as well. So It really depends on you. What's important to you? Which one do you find better? I can tell you from my personal preference, because I am getting older, and my last job in America had me working nearly 80 hours a week. I prefer Thailand. I still do work very hard here in Thailand at times, like around final exam times, or before the semester starts and early in the semester when you're putting together the syllabus and the curriculum. A lot of times I'm teaching classes for which may be new classes, so there's no actual curriculum, there's no textbook, and so I got to come up with everything on my own, and so before the semester starts I got to spend a lot of time on that. Plus I'm sometimes working on special projects which are pretty demanding, but on average my work schedule is not too grueling here. Like right now we're on semester break. I don't have a lot I have to do for my university work. I've had to do a few little things here and there. But I'm not working too hard during the break time. Plus, I also mentioned the Social Security issue before. And when I retire here, because my Social Security is coming from America, not from here, and I contributed a lot while I was in America because I mentioned I had that job that I had worked so hard at in America, so I made a fair amount of money. So I contributed a lot to my Social Security as well. So even though I'm contributing nothing to Social Security right now, and I've been here 9 years, haven't contributed in 9 years, I will still receive about the same amount that an average American does in Social Security. While living here in Thailand, because I do plan on retiring here in Thailand, my income is actually going to double. Could even be closer to triple. I don't know the exact math right now. I'd have to look it up. But it will at least double when I retire here in Thailand. And if I wait to retire a little longer, the amount goes up because they base it on how long they have to pay you for. And so if you retire later, fewer years until you die. So the point is I'll be able to live comfortably here in Thailand once I retire. I won't be rich. Not even close. It's not that much money. But I'll be comfortable. I won't have any problems. Like right now, my budget's pretty tight sometimes. I've actually had to borrow money from some people occasionally, which I hate doing. I hate borrowing money from friends. I've had to do that occasionally. So my budget's pretty tight sometimes here in Thailand. When I retire, my income's going to double, maybe even triple. So I prefer Thailand. But again, I'm not going to say Thailand is better, quote unquote. It depends on you and what you're looking for. A young, ambitious person with really high goals and expectations for yourself. If you're a Thai person studying English and you think you want to go to America, maybe you should. Maybe America's better for you. At least for a while. Maybe come back here once you start getting older, because I think Thailand's better for older people. But maybe you should go to America for a while. So I'm not going to say Thailand's better, America's better. It depends on you. For me, I prefer Thailand. All right, so that's it for today's program. Thank you for joining us for today's episode of An American in Thailand. Any young people out there looking ahead to university in the next year or two, please consider our wonderful university here, Ratchamakon University of Technology, Peranakan. Also, please stay with us, and don't forget to tune back in next week for another interesting episode. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you.